Hi, good morning everyone. Let's get started with the next topic for this training session, which is on SAP's transport management system. Okay, so basically what we'll be doing, we'll be going through the different landscape strategies. We'll be seeing how we can transport the request from one landscape to another landscape, how we can transport across the domains from one topology to another topology. Okay, so let's get started. So this is showing you a transport directory. That is, in a Unix system you have a transport folder called user SAP trans /user /SAP/trans. This, and the parameter for that is dir_trans. Here you can see this is the profile parameter. This is the directory location, and in Windows you will see by this name, that is // the host name / basically the name of the host. Okay, /SAPMNT/trans. So this is in Windows system. Now here you can see this is your dev system, quality system, and the production system, and you can have multiple other systems as well, but for simplicity I have just taken these three systems. And this is your transport directory. You can see that it's a central transport directory for all these systems which are part of the domain. Okay, now in this trans folder you can see there is a bin folder, there is a data folder. So here you can see this is having old data, log file, act log, buffer, co files. Okay, so the key things that I wanted to highlight is the data file, the co files, the buffer, and there are other directories like EPSIN and temp folder is also there. Okay, now creating a transport directory continued. Basically this is showing you that how the transport request is transported from your dev system to your quality system. Basically the changes are copied, that is exported into this particular transport directory, and as a next step, basically these are the sequence, as a next step they are imported, that is copied into the quality system, and after it is successfully tested and validated, you can copy that is imported again into the production system. Okay, so basically physically objects in a three system landscape are transported in three steps. As if step 1 is all objects in a transportable transport request. So why we call it as a transportable, we will see that basically you can have a local object and the objects which can be transported. Okay, so all objects in a transportable transport request that are to be released are exported by being copied from the database of the source system to the transport directory. That is the step 1 in this. And step 2, what happens is that these objects which were exported out of the dev system are imported into the database of the quality assurance system. Here they are tested and validated. We just saw that in the previous slide. Basically it is the explanation of this. Okay, after testing and verification, the objects can be imported into the database of the production system. So here you can see that this is a pictorial diagram showing the three different systems and how the export and import and the movement into the production takes place. Okay, now SAP landscape. Basically you have transport domain, that is all systems transported or controlled centrally. Okay, system landscape for the Asian implementation, you have your Asian implementation here. You have your European implementation, you can have your say the US implementation over here. Okay, so now basically this is one domain, that is all the Asian countries are there in this domain. In another domain you can have say Europe. Basically the changes in the object is transported from the dev system to QA system to production system in this landscape, and you can transport across the domains as well in case if you create a domain link. Okay, so let's see the different terminology. That is a transport domain. Okay, transport domain basically consists of all systems that you plan to manage centrally. Okay, so here you can see that this is one transport domain. Systems having all the Asian implementation systems. This is another transport domain which is having the systems of European implementation. Okay, so transport domain consists of all SAP systems that you plan to manage centrally. Within the transport domain, all SAP systems must have a unique ID, and only one of these SAP systems is identified as the domain controller. Okay, so domain controller basically is the system which you assign or allocate to manage the transport within your landscape, within the domain. Okay, transport domain controller is the SAP system where all TMS basically stands for transport management system. So the transport domain controller is the SAP system where all TMS configuration settings are maintained. Any changes to the configuration setting are distributed to all SAP systems in the landscape. This ensures that the TMS configuration settings are consistent throughout the domain. The transport domain controller stores the reference configuration, and all other system receives a copy of the reference configuration. Okay, the next thing is SAP system landscape is a set of systems that share customizing and repository objects via transported transport requests. The typical landscape is made up of, but is not limited to, a dev system, that is development, quality assurance, and a production system. In most cases, the system landscape and transport domains are made of the same system, but it is not common to have multiple systems within one transport domain. Okay, now transport domain and transport group. A transport group, basically this is one transport group, consists of one or more systems that share a common transport directory. So basic thing for a transport domain, transport group, is it should have a single transport directory. Okay, so this is your domain 1. Here this is domain, in the transport domain, transport group 1. This is your transport group 2, but these two are in the same domain. Okay, now TMS. The configuration of TMS, that is transport management system, can be broken into 3 individual steps. Step 1 is configuring the transport domain, which defines which system will be included in the domain. Second is configuring the transport routes, which define the system and client roles within the landscape, and optionally configuring the QA procedure, which defines who is responsible for approving the acceptance of changes and the promotion of those changes to the delivery system. Okay, setting up the transport management system. Here you can see at the top you have QA procedure configuration. Next step is configure transport routes. Then at the bottom, the core is create a transport domain with transport domain controller, define systems of the transport domain. So these are the 3 things. Okay, then we have initializing the transport domain controller. The first SAP system you configure is automatically selected as the transport domain controller, because that is the first system and the only system, so can be nominated as the transport domain controller. And later, if you decide to change, you can move it to a different system. Establishing a transport domain. SAP recommends that the SAP system chosen to be the domain controller has the following attributes. One is it should have high availability, possible high security precautions, could be a development production system because it's more secure, highest level of maintenance, Same goes for the production system. So therefore a production system might be the ideal choice to be the transport domain controller. Now when using TMS for the first time after system installation, you are automatically prompted to initialize the TMS, and you need the authorization of CS_CTS_admin. Okay, so how do we go about it? As a step one, what you do is you log into the client 000. Okay, then when you go to STMS T code, you can assign the system as a transport domain controller. Then you can create a transport domain name. After that, you can create a transport group. It's optional, but you can create a transport group. Then you can create a system TMS ADM in client 000. You can create an RFC destinations and set up the domain.cfg and tp_domain name .pfl in directory bin of the transport directory. Okay, when you initialize the TMS, we have seen what happens is the following actions are performed. Transport group is created, and in client 00 TMS ADM is created, RFC destination required are created, and TMS configuration file domain.cfg is generated and is stored in the transport directory. Then transport profile for the transport control program TP is generated and stored in the transport directory bin. Okay, now here you can see that adding additional SAP system to a transport domain. To add a additional new SAP system to an existing transport domain, you must perform configuration activities on both the new SAP system and the transport domain controller. Okay, centralized configuration data. So you have transport domain. Basically these are the RFCs which are created, which access automatically. Okay, then we have the different routes. Here you can see that the SAP system within a transport domain communicates with each other using the RFCs. It's pretty common. Basically all the communication or most of the communication happens through the RFCs. Okay, when SAP systems are added to a transport domain, the necessary RFC destination and user IDs are automatically configured by the TMS tool. The transport domain configuration settings are distributed throughout the transport domain using RFC communication. There are two types of RFCs. One is basically with the user as TMS ADM. Here you can see at sid.domain name. Another is using TMS SUP at sid.domain name. Okay, next thing, let's get into the virtual system. Say when you have your first system and you want to transport the changes, you need to create a second system which you can add, and if you don't have the system ready, you can create a virtual system at that point of time. Okay, and later you can replace it with the actual system. Okay, next thing is the backup domain controller. Say for example, if your domain controller fails, what will happen? Or if you want to do a planned activity on a domain controller, in that case what is done normally is you can create a backup domain controller. Okay, and during time of crisis it can take over as the main domain controller. Configuring the transport control program TP. Okay, so we have just seen in the transport import how this works. Okay, transport layer and transport routes. So basically here you can see this is a consolidation route, that is from your dev system to your quality system you have consolidation route, and from the quality system to your production system you have your delivery routes. Okay, so what are these consolidation route and delivery routes are? A consolidation route is an export-import route. Typically, the consolidation route proceeds from the development system. A delivery route is another import route. Basically, all transport objects are grouped into logical unit called packages. Previously, you call them as development classes. So the definition of each package contains an assignment of a transport layer. Alright, so let's go to the transport routes. Here we will see the integration systems, the consolidation systems, and the target systems. Integration system, basically the SAP system work where changes originate and are assigned to the transport request. The SAP system where customer changes are integrated with the SAP standard, customer developments and modifications takes place. And consolidation system is basically the target system of a consolidation route. And finally, the delivery system is the target system of a delivery route. Okay, now here you can see the three system landscape using a standard configuration. Okay, so this is your standard transport layer, ZDEV. You have your consolidation route. Okay, so this is your another delivery route from QA to production. So this is making it more complex, same thing. Okay, then you have the approval process. Okay, so basically talking more about the approval process, and in this figure we are showing that how to configure the approval procedure. So define the QA system, define the approval precedence. Now verifying the TMS test. So for verifying, what you do is you need to go to STMS and just perform these three tests which are listed here. Extended transport control. This is another key concept. Basically, you can define your transport movement based on the client. Okay, so using SAP standard transport controller, it is not possible to transport a transport request from one development system into multiple QA systems in an easy way. The reason for that is that it is not possible to create two transport routes within the same transport layer from one SAP system. As every repository object is assigned to a certain transport layer, it follows that a transport request can only have one target system. Now, transport groups. Basically, the solution for the problem stated above is to create a transport group, which may lead to one or more SAP systems. So here you have created a transport group, basically to send a request to these two systems at the same time. Okay, client-specific transport control. Okay, so you can follow this. Extended transport control using client-dependent transport. Okay, then transport across the domains. So you have a domain A, you have domain B. How you can transport across domains. Okay, that's all actually I wanted to cover in this particular training session. Thanks for joining and have a nice day. Bye-bye.